Hi, this is Faxi Nadu, and welcome to part 2 of Faxi Nadu's modular crash course. This part, we'll be talking a little bit about how this course is built, and then we'll get a little bit to taking our first look at the Scopes modular itself and how it works and what it includes, and just a little bit of a general overview of our modular that we're going to use. But first of all, about the course, this course is a series of video presentations. And you can just find each one of the parts online, and you can watch them in succession, or you can just choose to watch certain parts. We will be actually building something else, but we're going to be focusing on something new that we're going to learn in that video as well. So each video will introduce something that you haven't seen before, as well as building something that you haven't built before. So, and we're going to be building various things. We're going to have start out with like a 1-OSC synth just for the simple basics, and we're going to have a 3-OSC synth. We're going to build a really cool and really insane theremin clone that gets really hectic. We're going to show you how to do sequence stuff, how to set up sequencers and drum machines and all that. We're going to have a look at glitch machines, at drum machines, noises, how to use noise, how to make drones, and then we're going to pull it out all together by making like 2 or 3 really massive like super patches, like maybe one for a synth, a super synth, and one for like a live ambient kind of platform that you can use for a live show. So that pretty much covers I hope, and throughout the videos, obviously, I'm going to try to give you as many modular kind of tips and tricks, as well as a lot of any synthesis knowledge that I can convey while building these things. I will try to do that as well. Now, I just want to mention that all the patches that we are working with and making in this course, and the documents such as if you've seen part 1, then in part 1 I've shown a comprehensive presentation, and you can download that as a PDF, and then you can there's a link list, there's a resource list in that document, and you can just have that link list handy if you want to explore the links that I've talked about in part 1. Now, the one thing I want to mention is the course sound quality is not ideal. We're using TeamViewer, free version of TeamViewer, and while you can probably hear my voice fine enough, you won't be able to hear the sound quality as it should be of the Scope platform and of the modular, and you won't be able to hear exactly the nuances of the sounds that I'm making in the patches. And obviously this is most important, especially with working with modulars when we have so many modulations going on. So just keep that in mind. I'm giving you a technical knowledge and kind of like an artistic guideline for you to explore and go wild with. So don't get hung up on the sound that you hear coming out of my modular. Try to focus like on the content itself and what you can take from it for your own knowledge, your own exploration, and your own knowledge. So let's start by having a look at the scope. And as I've shown in the introduction, this is a system that basically takes everything in your studio and turns it into an object. So you will have everything that has to do with sound basically inside your computer is an object. So your wave sources, your audio coming out of your sequencer, your source and destination, and as well as things inside Scope. So things internal to Scope and external to Scope, which are actually like physical things on your computer and virtual things on your computer, are all objects, and they all interact with each other. So Scope treats everything in the same way. So for example, what you could do is like you could take an audio channel, you could take like an audio channel from your DAW, and you could send it outputs on your DAW itself, and then they will come out here. So let's say you send it to outputs 4, left and right. Could actually output that into your yeah, I have an ADAT box, so I can just output it, for example, send it to some external sound processor, and then send it back into my computer and record it. And as easy as making as those virtual connections. So this is pretty cool, and there are a lot of other cool things that you can do with it. For example, you have two MIDI drivers. Say my DAW is using up my internal MIDI driver. I can just open up another one. It will be somewhere here. IO, sequencer MIDI source, and then destination. So I could actually have, if I really want to, two DAWs open at the same time, and they would each have their own MIDI chain and be able to work within this system. So it's very cool. And getting to our own thing right here, this is the modular. So the modular is actually just like an empty box within this system, just like any other box. Here you just go to empty modular, and you have two versions. You have one which is 2 inputs, 4 outputs, and one which has 8 ins and 8 outs. And if you want to make like a mixer or something that uses 8 inputs, then you have that option. It is very simple. You connect, if you want MIDI inside your patch, you connect it to either your physical source, which would be your scope card's actual hardware MIDI connection, and it would be this one, or to the MIDI that is coming out of the sequencer, which would be this one. Now, obviously, if you have a sequencer open and it's on, and you have a keyboard open, like a sequencer open and an external keyboard open, then you can just send MIDI from the sequencer and be on the right channel with your keyboard, and it'll send MIDI from the physical input. So, but right now I don't have a DAW open, so I've just connected my modular to my physical MIDI input. And then you have outputs, 2 of them, so we can make ourselves a stereo patch. And it's going into my scope mixer, and that is going into my physical analog output. This is my speakers, actually. So it's going to the speakers. And I'm using a mixer inside scope, whereas I can quickly, it's not like a studio, it mixes my computer. It's like your Windows mixer, just inside scope. And what it does, it just mixes my wave sources, my audio if I wanted, my modular, my external synth, whatever, my microphone right now, which I'm using to do this tutorial. So everything is mixed into this mixer, and I just chose this one, the micro mixer, and there are many, many other types inside scope. And they can get really crazy and full-fledged mixers with EQs and compressors and insert slots and everything on them. You have that option as well. If you want to mix inside scope, you can. So the modular itself, once I made my connections, I can double click and it'll open the modular window. And the default modules that are open inside the modular window, and these you can't delete these as well. These are your physical ins and outs as illustrated out here. So it will be just the MIDI in, which is 1 input, and then in 1, in 2, which are these. And the same for the audio, and we have 4. And if you open the 8x8 one, then you can see that 8 ins and 8 outs inside. So it's just simple enough, right? So this would be the modular, and it would be called the modular shell. And here you would here you do all the actual modular work. Here you have the voice count, where if you want a polyphonic patch, then you have to count over here, and we will get into polyphony and everything in the course itself. But just remember that the voice count itself is up here. And what it does is it's a matter of DSP load. The higher the voice count, each voice, there's one instance going in the background of each module. So for 3 voices, it's actually whatever you build times 3. So it'll take a lot more DSP. So by default, and right now, let's leave it at 1. Here you have the options for cable colors, which you'll see in a minute, and whether to show the routed cables or not, or to solo one module and show just those connections. But everything about the connections and everything in just a minute. Let's take a look at what we have. This and this, these are third party, and we'll take a look in a minute. But all these folders up here, from drum up to sequencer, are all stock modules that come with modular. So, and this is modular version 4. If you look up here, I have modular 2, modular 3, and modular 4. They're actually the exact same modular, but each iteration, each release actually released more modules into the system and maybe fixed some bugs and fixed some modules. So Modular 4 is the latest installment, and what it just all that it means is that it has all the modules that are available directly from Sonic Core, the company. Modular 4, and as you can see, we have different things that do different things. And the first one is a folder called drum. And these are things that are used for drum synthesis, whether it be drum synths and oscillators and kind of little themselves, or the needed modules in order to create drum machines and drum sequencers and to make all that work. Big effects folder, and there's a ton of stuff inside of here. It ranges from delays, different kinds of delays, kinds of distortion algorithms of many kinds, frequency shifter and delay, a certain kind of delay and phasor. They're frequency based, and insert effects, which allow you to integrate with other scope effects. Things, modulation effects, pitch effects, tempo-based stuff, vocoding, modulation, wave shaping, and all that is in here. So you can just pull out any module that you would like to use, available to you. Then we have the envelopes tab, which is also very vast. There's much more than just a basic ADSR envelope or AD envelope that you usually know on synths. And they're mostly variations of the envelope. So if you take ADSR and then you take ADSR-B with some sort of variation. So if I look right here, I see that B has the normal output that the normal one has, but also has an option for an inverted output. And you might find some uses for that. The series, which is called NMOD version of the envelope, has modulation inputs, which allow you to have something else like an LFO or another envelope or some other control move around the attack, decay, sustain, and release knobs. And there are some more like an envelope follower and envelope tools that we will get into. We have the filters folder, and again, many options. Bandpass filters, comb filters, multi-mode filters of various kinds, and some special filters like a modeled ladder filter, P1, Prophet 1, and Prophet 5 filter. Into all of these in our course itself. And again, there are modules that are like clones of each other with some sort of difference inside. So let's take out all the multi-mode filters. And we have A, B, and C. And then A, I can see that it has either 12 or 24 dB option. Allows you to change view filter types. And then B is a 12 dB filter that has outputs for high pass, band pass, and low pass that you can mix later on. And then the type C types inside. So again, just showing you the various available things just so you get an idea what the system includes. Then the gates folder has all sorts of kind of like math operations that you do on gate signals. And we will get into some of these. We will learn how to use the gate logic, and we will learn how to use the compare and gate to sync and some other stuff from the gate. A random gate generator, a random click generator. We will get into all of those. And many types, not just your usual multi-LFO. The A and B versions of the same module, the same with some modulation differences. So if you look at A and B LFOs, the A and B are the same, but the A has modulation inputs on it. So sometimes you might not need it, but if you'd like modulation inputs, then you'd use the A. You might say, okay, let's just always use the A, But again, if you take a look at the DSP, it's funny, then you have to kind of worry about, try to use simpler modules when you can, when you don't need the more complicated ones. And then there are crazier LFOs, there are chaos LFOs, random LFOs, eco LFOs, all sorts of neat LFOs. We will get into some of them, as many as we can, inside the course. MIDI clocks, MIDI brains, and all sorts of tools for working with MIDI. And these are obviously absolutely essential, and we're going to be getting into all of them when we're building our patches. Mix and gain, which is actually like your voice structure. How are you going to mix the signals? Do you want to gain them? Do you want meters that enable you to look at the volume of the signals? Some way, block DC, sorts of other functions, switches, CAs. Obviously, you need inside your patches, and we will get into all of these. There's keys and values, pitch modifiers, which allow you to change the pitch of oscillators and other things. Fires inside. The core of any synthesizer, the OSC section. And there are multi-oscillators that include multiple shapes, as well as single oscillators for the basic subtractive synth shapes. Old oscillators like the CZ series, which is actually a modeling of the Casio line of like old broken organs. This is kind of pretty cool. And you have some other really interesting stuff like terrain synthesis. Awesome concept in itself. Stable synthesis. Cool oscillators like for this one, the P1 OSC, which is a high-level module that has actually 2 oscillators and some interaction going on inside. This is just a pool that allows you to have sample pools inside your patch. Sequencer tools, and it's pretty cool. You have gate sequencers, control sequencers, and we will show in our videos how to use them, and more importantly, how to set them up, because there are some connections you need to do to set them up. Now, other than all the Creamer modules, sorry, the Sonic Core. Sonic Core was previously called Creamer, so I'm sometimes still stuck with that name. So all the Sonic Core modules are in these folders. Just created it inside the program files, and these are third-party free modules and downloaded from the internet that people make using the SDK, and there's a lot of cool stuff in here. For example, someone actually even made me my own logo. Obviously, there's some useful stuff, not just Faxi's logo in here. And various utilities and cool things. Pack, which we will get into really deeply in our course. And this is a whole insane pack of modules, filters, oscillators, shapers, sequencers, basically a lot of the stuff that you see here, but with a different concept, different design, and different sound of modular. They contradict the sound of the Sonic Core modules very nicely, contradict and kind of complement the sound very nicely, and fill up the sound of this modular very well. So we'll get in deep into those, I promise. View of what is the modular, what it includes. Most modular systems will include most of these modules, maybe some other ones, or maybe ones that are conceived a little bit differently. As you will see in Flexor, you can make similarly called and similar functional modules, but with different philosophy behind them. System, then yeah, watching this course will kind of allow you to do the stuff that we do here with the scope within any modular system. So stay tuned, and in part 3, we're getting right down to the learning and to the building and we're just jumping in the water, and we're going to start making modular patches. Get to the next part, and I'll see you there.